We are now live.
All right. All right, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I'm going to show you how to make pizza from the ground up tonight. It's really quite simple.
Just only one follower's joined so far.
Okay.
Just it's on the video for YouTube. Carl joined.
Okay.
Hey, Carl and Sauce. Okay, people are jumping. Okay, we got 10 people. You can start.
Okay. So today was our first day opening in 2 months. It was fantastic. So it actually worked quite smoothly.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, so we're kind of glad to have that behind us now, that first day. Drinking a little bit of rosé. Rosé is a great pizza wine, and it goes with so many different types of pizzas, whereas other wines are a little harder to pair with pizza. So we're drinking a little rosé, brand new. We just put it in the bottle yesterday, and maybe a little bit in bottle shock still, but tasting.
Hold up the bottle. I'll get a little close up of the rosé bottle.
Tasting pretty good. So we're going to be moving around a little bit here because we can't really put a stationary camera. So stick with us through that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to make some dough, and it's really pretty simple. And there's two ways to do it. Okay. Now I'm going to suggest that you guys follow. There's a couple of recipes that I'm kind of using the basic same recipe. There's a recipe on Oni site. Oni is a pizza oven. I just got this little Oni pizza oven. Normally we would make pizza when we do it for the club in our big wood burning oven over here. But this thing takes a ton of wood, and we can really crank out a lot of pizzas, but doesn't make sense for when you're doing 4 or 5 pizzas. So this is the top of the line Oni oven. It's about $600. And if you're into pizza and you want to do it at home, these are really fantastic. I've just cooked on it once. This is my second time. I just got it this week. But it gets really up to high temperatures, doesn't burn a lot of wood. It has a few quirks you need to get used to, but it's really a fantastic little pizza for home. Weighs about 50 pounds, so you can transport it around. So first thing they have on the Oni site, and it's just, if you Google Oni pizza dough, O-O-N-I pizza dough, you're going to come to a recipe. And we're going to kind of follow that recipe. But I'm going to do it in 2 stages here. I'm going to do 2 different recipes. I'm going to make a no-knead pizza dough, which I really like, and we're going to try that as well. The no-knead dough is very easy, if you're doing it, we're just going to make a little smaller batch of that, and then a bigger batch of this. You don't have to have a lot of you may have a KitchenAid, a small mixer. You can use those. You don't have to have a mixer to do this. This is a bigger mixer that we can put 12 cups of flour in at a time, and it works really well. And this is what we use for all of our club parties in here. But we're going to do this. We're just going to start with this. And what I like to do when I start is I like to take. I lost my little measuring cup about 2 minutes ago, so I just grabbed another little mason jar, which is a cup. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a cup of water, and this water is warm. It's not hot. You don't want hot water. You're going to kill your yeast. We're going to take a cup of warm water, and this is going to make about 4 or 5 dough balls. We're going to put 4 cups of flour in this. So I'm going to take a half a teaspoon of yeast in here, okay? And then I'm going to whisk this up. And just get that yeast, just proof this yeast a little bit, give it a little bit of a head start. I find that this method really, you can put the yeast directly into the flour, but I find that this is a good way to start. And so we're going to do that with our other smaller batch here, which is only going to require about a cup of water total. In this one, this is a no-knead, and I'm only going to use 2 cups of flour here. So we're going to make 2 dough balls in this one and 4 dough balls in this one. So I'm going to use just about half of that amount of yeast. I'm going to use just about a 1/4 teaspoon of yeast in this one. I'm going to whisk it up a little bit. All right. Now we're going to add some flour. And let me tell you a little something about flour here, okay? So what I would recommend is I use a flour from Pendleton in Oregon. It's a rough wheat, high gluten flour. It's probably got about 13% gluten. It's very high gluten. When you're dealing with high gluten, it's a little trickier. It hydrates. You need more water to hydrate it. So for most of you, I would recommend just going online and getting some, if you're serious about making pizza, 00. Okay, just Google 00 flour, and that's what I'd suggest you make your pizza with. It's on the Oni site, which is a good resource site, but it's all over the internet. You can get it in 5-pound bags, and it really makes nice pizza. You could go a lot of different ways with dough. You can do sourdough. I have a good friend of mine who, actually we have another little oven over here, which is a great little oven, a propane oven. And you can use propane with these Oni ovens as well. We're burning wood right now. But you really need the high gluten flour. 00 is classic flour that is used in Neapolitan pizza. All right, now we're going to add...
Customers sometimes ask you, Steve, can you make a no gluten flour dough? And you say no.
You know, I don't... never say never, but there are a lot of high gluten recipes out there. I just haven't, really gotten one that I think makes a good pizza. I should try some more, and I will. Okay, so we're gonna put 4 cups of flour in this one. We're gonna put 2 cups of flour in this one. All right, actually, this is gonna go into the mixer. We're not gonna mix this by hand. We're gonna do this in the mixer. If you have a mixer, it's a lot easier for if you're doing any kind of quantity here. Okay.
You said you used to have a little tiny mixer and it would burn out in like half an hour, and we make.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a little, KitchenAid at home or something, you don't want to put more than 6 or 8 cups of flour in there. This will take 12 cups of flour. We can do it over and over again, and it's no big deal. So on our typical weekend here, for a club party, we might go through 70 or 80 pizzas. So we're doing, 40 at a time generally. So we've got the yeast in there, and now I'm going to put. Generally, I put about a half to 3/4. I use it actually more towards 3/4, but we're just going to follow the Oni recipe. We're going to use a half of teaspoon of salt per cup of flour. So I'm putting a teaspoon in this one, and I'm putting 2 teaspoons in the batch with 4 cups of flour. Okay, now in this one, we're just going to mix this up by hand. And by the way, don't mix your salt with the flour. Don't throw your salt into the water with the yeast. Wait till you get the flour in there, or mix the salt separately with the flour. Okay, this one we're going to add another half cup of water. So I've got 1.5 cups of water here. And we want this to be as wet as it can be without sticking. Now I've got a little bit too much flour or water in there, so I'm going to add a little bit of flour back. I want it to be almost wet, but not. See, this is still pretty sticky. I don't quite want it to stick to my hands that much. If you want to do this consistently every time, you're going to have to weigh the flour. If I were doing this in a restaurant setting, I would weigh the flour every time, because flour has different moisture contents depending on what's going on outside. Now, so this is just about right. It's pretty wet, but it's not sticking. It's very soft. That's what we're looking for. I'm looking for really soft, kind of soft dough. In this one, we're going to add 2 cups of water. And we're going to just turn this on and let it go for about 8 minutes. I'm just going to let that knead for about 8 minutes. We may need to add a little bit more water to this one. We'll see. Okay, so when we've got this one done here, and if you wanted to knead this a little bit, it's called a no-knead dough, but you could knead it a little bit for a minute or two. It's really not necessary at this point. But this is, I can't express how soft this is. That's what you need. You don't want a tough, hard, it's really soft at this point. Okay, so we've got this going. All we need to do now for this no-knead dough is we're going to cover it with some saran wrap, and we're just going to let it sit. And it should sit in a warm place, and we're going to let it sit overnight. So generally I like to do this, like I'll make it in the afternoon the day before, put it in a fairly warm place, let it sit the whole night, and in the morning, it should be, or later in the morning, it should be this kind of spongy, you know, something that's going to be very hard to handle, you're going to have to add some more flour. But once it's going to double, at least double in size. And so we put less yeast in this because it's going to sit at room temperature overnight. And I actually love the way the pizzas that come from this dough. So we're going to let this sit overnight. And then we're going to come back to it in the morning and or late morning, and we're going to make dough balls out of it. Okay, so we're going to add some flour to it, and we're going to make dough balls out of it. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do that with this particular batch of dough as soon as it gets set up enough where I can handle it. Dough ball is a big part of making a round pizza. You can make all kinds of different shaped pizzas. Doesn't have to be round. But this is how you start off to make a round pizza, is you've got to form a dough ball. And we're going to do that here in a second. Now, I already have dough balls that I made yesterday ready to go. And this is what we're going to use tonight. Okay? This is what we're going to use. And these are on borderline overproofed. But they make great pizza like that, and I did that on purpose. I have 4 dough balls that I did in the Hobart, and then I have a couple dough balls that I just made just like we just did it. That's the no knead. So this set overnight. When we do this in the Hobart, what's going to happen here is that we're going to let this knead for about 8 minutes, and then I'm going to I'm going to sit this in a warm area for a couple of hours until it doubles. All right, it has a little bit more yeast in it than the no knead does. And then at that point, once it doubles, I can make my dough balls, and then I can shove it. You know, I can let the dough balls sit for another hour or so, maybe not even another hour, and then I shove it right in the refrigerator. And I pull them out of the refrigerator, let them sit for about 45 minutes. They don't have to be totally at room temperature. I actually like them when they're a little cooler to handle, but that's really all it takes. We have to put some more wood in the pizza oven, else we're going to not be able to.
And we actually have cut up some barrel staves, which is the most appropriate thing ever for a pizza
And these
oven.
are our barrel staves that we're doing in here. And that's the one thing about these ovens, you have to keep feeding them. They don't take that much wood, but you've got to keep feeding them. If you don't, your fire's going to die down, and you can't make, they need to be pretty hot. So I like to get this oven, it says it'll get at 950. I don't think that's going to, I've never seen it get to 950. So this is the hard part about doing this, is that if you quit paying attention and your fire goes out, you're screwed. So if you're doing this at home and you got a bunch of people around talking to you, don't let your fire go out. These ovens don't work. They've got to be constantly fed, these little ovens. There's not that much wood, so the fire can go out in a relatively short period of time, so you have to pay attention to that. But these ovens draft really great, so they pick right back up. So see, we put that wood in there, it's starting again, we'll be fine. But we'll pay a little more attention to that. Okay, this is almost in good enough shape where I can show you how to make a dough ball. And let me just say that we're going to put this video online so you can reference it again. When you make dough balls, there's plenty of YouTube tutorials to show you how to do it. It's really pretty easy. I mean, I'm going to make it look easier than it is because I've made thousands of them. But it's really not very difficult. And when you make this dough, you can see me throwing more flour in here. When you make this dough, you can always add more flour if it's too wet. I'd rather have the dough too wet than too dry. So if it's wet and you can see it's wet, it's not balling up, just throw a little bit more flour in it, okay? We had some pretty wet flour because it's been out here, so it's not bad, but it's almost to a point where I'm going to pull it out and make some dough balls for you. Okay, gotta have some more rosé because.
Describe the rosé briefly. What's a Saunier, Steve?
Well, yeah. So the rosé is what we do with this is when we ferment the main Pinot, we draw a little bit of juice off to help concentrate the ferment right at the time of fermentation, and with that juice we make rosé out of it. So our rosé is different than a lot of people. A lot of people will basically press their rosé like a white wine right off the bat. And they'll usually, some people will dedicate a small part of the vineyard to it, and they'll pick it really at low sugar. So they'll make these really high acid, kind of bracing acidity type rosés. And some people really like those. I'm not a big fan of them, so we do it a little differently. We love the Saignée method. We really started making rosé just as a byproduct of Saignée and wine, and then now we Saignée a lot because I'm a believer in it. It really does help concentrate things. So when we draw some of that juice off every year, it turns into rosé. And it varies how much rosé we make, just about how much Saignée we're going to do in each year.
So is it free run or press at that point?
It's really free run, basically. We're just drawing the juice right off of the before the ferment. So it's really just free run juice that we're drawing off. There's no pressed juice in it. Our rosé is generally higher alcohol, has a better mouthfeel than other rosés. A lot of other rosés are around 12%. Ours is really the percent that the Pinot is going to be, so it's really more around 14% because it's got this certain amount of sugar in it that we're going to use to make the regular Pinot. So we're just picking these ripe grapes that we're making this rosé. It's still balanced, still has good acidity. It's just different than rosés you've had. All right, this is ready, so let's pull this out.
How do you know it's ready? Just so you kind of look at how the...
Well, this has a timer on it, but also I could just see it. I can just see the
texture.
The texture of this. It's like, this dough when it's finished in the it's just like a baby's butt, really. I mean, that's the best way to describe it. It's really soft, just really soft and pliable. Look how soft. It's not sticking to me. It's just really, it's as soft as it can be without sticking to me. So, I've adjusted sugar. I've adjusted, I don't know what I did with my dough knife, but that's all right. I'll use this to cut. I've done this so many times that I just, I can add water and add flour based on what I can see going on. But I would say for the most part, just follow these recipes. They're so easy and they're pretty reasonable and easy to follow.
So if you have too much, if it's too wet or too dry, how will that affect the final product?
If it's too dry, you're not going to make good pizza.
Is it going to be is it going to burn up the crust or what happens?
No, it's going to be tough and hard. It won't be, we want it to be soft so it really bubbles up and gets a lot of air in there. So you really need to keep it pretty moist. Again, you don't want it to where it's sticking to you, but you want it really soft. I mean, this is very soft. So when you cut off, this is going to make about 4 dough balls, okay? We could actually make, I think the recipe actually says they'll make 5, and it will. They'll be smaller. But, so, you could just cut your dough balls. If you really wanted to get, if I were doing this in a restaurant setting, we would weigh each dough ball and make sure they're the precise amount. But we're not doing that. We're just having fun making pizza at home. Now, once you get the dough ball, here's the technique. You want to take this, and you just want to, you see how my fingers are going in like this? You kind of want to, and if it's sticking to you, you can add a little flour, okay? You can add a little flour to your hands. Now, you're just kind of turning the dough in on itself. And I'm spinning it with this hand and just turning it in on itself with this hand. You can do both hands and just spin it, okay? Then once you get a little ball there, just crimp this side of it, spin it around, crimp that, roll it on your surface, okay? And you've got a dough ball, okay? When you've got your dough ball...
It's a lot smaller than the ones in this, so it expands.
This is already proof. These have expanded. And this is, like I say, it's a little bit overproof. Once you have your dough ball here, okay, then, again, remember, we're going to let this sit at room temperature and double before we make these dough balls. So after we mix it, we're not going to go right to the dough ball stage like I did here. Although, when we make pizza for our club, we do it a little different and we do it like this, all right? But that's a little different story. I'm going to just make sure you make great pizza, and this is a very sound way to do it. So we're going to let that double, then we're going to make our dough balls. I'd let the dough balls sit out for maybe less than an hour, room temperature. Then I would put them in a container. You can have a Tupperware container like this, anything that'll hold 4 dough balls. Something flat, preferably. You don't need any olive oil in there. You don't need to spray it. If it's plastic, you don't need to do anything like that. All you have to do is put the dough ball in the container, and then we're going to put it in the refrigerator, and you can use it a day later, you can use it 2 days later, but then bring it out and let it warm up a little bit before you start to do that again. Okay, we're going to make some pizza pretty soon. Our oven is really good and hot. If you really get into this and you want to check your oven, it's good to get a little thermometer like this. This is a little infrared thermometer, so it has a little light that points. So we're about 900 degrees in there right now. Okay, so you see, especially at the back of the oven. Now, I will tell you, these ovens are going to cook hotter at the back, so you'll throw it in there, and I never like to throw it right to the back. You want to throw it a little bit up from the back, and we'll get into that here in a second. We just want to keep our fire good and hot, so I think it's hot enough to throw a pizza. I don't want to get it too hot, but we'll add some a little bit. All right, we're going to throw this back in here. Oh, by the way, if you don't have a warm place to put your, just put some hot water in another bowl and set your bowl inside, and that will really get it going. Okay, so like if you did that for this, that would totally get it going. That's how I made this dough yesterday. I just set it in a bigger bowl, and we got it going. We're going to keep that in there. Now we're going to make some pizzas here.
After some more rosé.
Yeah, after today, it was funny, we're so used to doing this week in, week out, dealing with customers, which we really like, and we realized how much we missed it when we didn't have any customers to deal with. But after you don't do it for 2 months, it is a little bit, it can be a little bit exhausting. All right, now I'm going to have to get my dough knife because I can't get this. Bear with me for 1 second. I had a dough knife. I'll get it. I'll be right back.
Here's Eric, your videographer, helping to watch Steve do this stuff. As he said, today was our first day open in 2 months exactly. A little bit rainy, but still a beautiful day on the vineyard. Steve's back. We're just giving you a little shot around the vineyard today. A little bit of rain, but gorgeous. We were pretty solid. We having to do appointments in time slots, and we were a couple of groups the first two, but then we were absolutely full the last couple. So we were good day. A few people were enjoying their tasting so much. The weather was nice. They bought a bottle after the tasting and went up on our rooftop and enjoyed it up there because we had to clean them out outside to get everything sanitized. But here we go. Dough knife.
All right. So this is the paddle I use for this. We have multiple paddles here. I had to cut one down because I couldn't fit it in the slot. We have bigger paddles to go in our oven. So I just hacked some off of it yesterday. But so what I do is sprinkle your board with flour before you do this. You can make it on another surface. You can make it on the flip side of the board and then sprinkle your board with flour. I'm just going to make it right on this stainless steel. If you're a cornmeal user, hey, whatever, but I think any pizzaiola would be horrified if you put cornmeal on the paddle. But don't put cornmeal.
Gluten free, Steve. Gluten free.
You put cornmeal on the paddle, I'll come to your house. I'll find you. It'll be trouble. Anyway, now try not to drop your paddle. All right. So once we get our dough balls out, first step is in this.
So these are the dough balls that already sat overnight, etc.
Press down. Don't take another thing. If you take a roller pin to this, I'll come to your house. I'll find you. I will. So don't take a roller pin to this. Just press down. The reason we're pressing down like this is we want it to be really even. Okay? We don't want thin and thick spots. We want it to be really even. So I'm going to press down on it.
So what's wrong with a roller pin? That'll make it even.
I don't like a roller pin. It's just, we don't want to take too much air out of it. We want that airiness in there, but we don't. So we don't really need to take a big roller pin. We just want to get the surface even throughout the dough ball. Okay? And this dough feels good. I could tell already it feels really good. What I do then is I grip my fingers around the edges like this, and I squeeze, and I just twirl it. So I'm moving it in a circular fashion, and the reason I'm doing that is to pop the air bubbles out of the crust.
No throwing, no spinning?
We get to it. We'll spin it a little bit.
All
We're
right.
probably not going to throw it, but we'll spin it a little bit. Now, hopefully, I don't have too many thick and thin spots throughout the pizza. Okay, and here's the technique for stretching this out. It's really not very hard. We're going to cup our hands like this, all right? And we're going to roll this kind of on our knuckles. And we're just going to pull with one hand and kind of rotate it with the other hand. Okay? And we're just going to stretch it out. Now this is pretty, this dough is really going to make great pizza. I can already sense it. It's very, it's really, it bounces back really quickly. So sometimes your dough will really stretch out. It's usually very elastic, but see, now you could throw it if you wanted to. If you wanted to get into it and throw it, I'll throw a next one, but I don't usually throw it. I just stretch it out like this.
And we make very thin crust, wood fire. This is not your deep dish style.
Now see, I'll tell you, the reason that we patted it out, tried to get it even, because if we didn't do that, we're going to get some really thin and thick spots in here. And we don't want to do that, okay? Yes, I forgot one main ingredient. Bear with me, I'll be right back.
So for those of you not in our wine club, we make 80, 90 of these in a weekend. And we're actually debating our next pickup parties in about 4 weeks, but we can't have buffet-style service, obviously, after the quarantine here. So we're looking at maybe moving personal pans, so...
Okay.
Something like that, but we're still going to keep dealing with them. And
all right, so we're back here. Now, once you have that flour on there, you kind of want to keep shaking this to keep it moving. If you get thin spots in there and it tears, that's the problem. If you don't put flour down and you walk away for 5 minutes and come back, or if you put flour down, sometimes it's going to stick, okay? So you've got it. This pizza has to be moving on the paddle. If it sticks, you're going to have a small disaster here. So we're going to add another piece of wood to the fire just to keep this going. Now, don't overtop pizzas. This is cooking in a really hot oven. If you don't have a little pizza oven like this, you can do this in the oven in your house, but you need to throw it on a tile. You need to put a tile or a stone, a pizza stone, on the bottom rack of your oven and crank it as high as it will go and keep it in there for 45 minutes before you throw a pizza on it. If you can't do that, you can do these in a barbecue. Again, you need a stone. You can do them in a lot of different ways, but it's got to hit that really hot stone to set this dough up. You can't make great pizza. Certainly you can't make good Neapolitan pizza unless you do that.
I need rosé also.
When you're doing pizza here, less is more. So we're gonna make a couple of different pizzas here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a tomato sauce one first, and I'm gonna show you exactly how I did this tomato sauce. Okay? I thought I brought my can up, but anyway, San Marzano tomatoes. You have to look for San Marzano tomatoes. We're lucky they sell them in the local Kruger Fred Meyer's here. But there is, before I'm finished here, I'll bring the can back out and show you this can. I put a can of San Marzano tomatoes in there. I put 2 tablespoons of olive oil, a tablespoon of fresh basil, a half teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of pepper in there. And that's it. And that's all you need. And some fresh garlic. I chop up some fresh garlic in there. And these San Marzano tomatoes, it's the only... it's like one of those iconic products. To me, I have certain iconic products. This is certainly one of them. They're actually made in the USA, even though, I'm sure you could get some very good Italian products. Everybody thinks they're an Italian product, but they're actually made in the USA if you look on the can. But they're fantastic. They're about $4 a can, and they're well worth it. I wouldn't use anything else. We don't use anything else here.
We will post this recipe along with the video, by the way, so you can get exactly what Steve's putting in the sauce.
Site, and I'll detail this. Now, when you're cooking in a hot oven like this, don't use part skim cheese. We usually get big, things of cheese here. I just bought this today at the local Kroger, Fred Meyer's here. This is whole milk mozzarella. And whether you grate it yourself, you get grated, use whole milk mozzarella. Do not use part skim because these ovens, it'll burn. It's really has a tendency to burn. If you're one of those people that I love a lot of cheese on pizza, but this style of pizza in a hot oven like this, you could do it if you're doing it in your oven at home because they're going to cook slower. You can still make very good pizza like that as long as you put it on a stone and it's really hot. These ovens are too hot to overtop. When you go into pizza restaurants, wood-fired pizza, nobody overtops, all right? Because they cook so quick that you won't have time to cook everything and you'll have a mess on your hand. So what we're going to do now, a lot of times I like to do sopressata. This is this fantastic salami that is local, that is carried by a company named Olympia Provisions. And I can never remember the name of this particular salami, but they have a bunch of but this
it's just hard Genoa, right?
No, it's not hard Genoa. It's got a specific name, and we can post that as well. But it's delicious. Their products are very good. But sopressata is good if you're putting meat on it. Again, get it cut we have a slicer here, so we slice our own meat, but slice it as thin as you can. We really want it very thin. So I'm covering it with a very thin layer of sopressata on this one. I'm going to put some mushrooms on it. Not a lot. Again, I'm not overtopping this. I'm just going to keep it to a minimum here. This is an Eric pizza. We're going to make this pizza for Eric.
Me first.
Because he likes the meat pizza. So I'm going to put a little bit of some Kalamata on this.
So you're testing to see if the oven is right with my pizza.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm pretty sure it's good. I'm putting some Kalamata olives, and then I'm putting some roasted garlic on here. And when we do garlic, we roast it, and then we chop it up. Don't put big old cloves of garlic. I hate when I go into these pizza places, and they put these giant cloves of garlic, they're just not proportioned right. This is a fantastic little product called Mama's Little Peppers, based here in Portland, Oregon. They're pickled, they say pickled Hungarian peppers. They're spicy, and they're everywhere. Any pizza place in Portland that's worth their salt has Mama's Little Peppers. And I just break a few of them up. They're kind of spicy, so you don't want to overdo it with these. But they're really good. Now, another thing I'll tell you when you're doing these pizzas, be careful, is that if you're putting something on and you get you drip it in front, like I just dripped a little bit of oil there, the dough's going to stick on that oil. So you got to make sure that you pay attention to that, because when you try to throw it in, your dough's going to stick on that. And you're going to have a real mess here. So we make sure that we got a nice surface. If you were to shake it and it wasn't moving, last resort, well, I'll show you that in a minute. I'm going to clean the oven here and make sure we have a nice clean oven to go into. Oni has you can find all these utensils. These are used for the big oven. This is too big for this oven. I just took the blade off of it and it works fine. But if you get to this point and it's not moving, you can try a last resort, but that's pick it up and blow under it, and it puts like a little layer of air underneath it. It comes off pretty easy. Now, we're going to put that in there. And normally here, I would just start the next pizza, but and I gave Eric a no-knead dough because I think that's going to be the better of these two doughs. I just love no-knead dough. So I normally start another pizza now. Again, you see what I'm doing? I'm patting this out now. I want to just get it nice and even. I want that layer of dough to be even across so we don't get any thick and thin spots starting out. When you throw this in the oven, you're going to have to keep an eye on it, okay?
So how do you know how long it takes to cook? What's your cook time?
It's not going to take long. I don't have the oven to 900 degrees. We're cooking about 700 degrees here. So total time's going to probably take about 5 minutes, maybe a little less. It's already setting up in the back. These little ovens cook hotter in the back than they do in the front. So you're going to have to be aware of that. Better to, you've got to let it set up. You've got to wait till it bubbles up. And then you can pull it out and you can turn it. You see it's all, this side's already getting, so then we can turn it. And I would say keep it more towards the front now because that back's hot, the front's not as hot. And that's the kicker with these little ovens is they're always going to cook hot on the back. And sure, it might get up to 950 degrees on the back, but you're going to chart. So you got to be careful and really watch these.
So when you use the full-size brick oven, it's a big enough space inside the whole pizza. You don't have to turn it in between.
We do turn it still. We do turn it, and we bring it to another cooler spot in the oven. We start it in back. But they cook more evenly than these little ovens.
I thought it cooked in like 90 seconds too in the big one.
Yeah, these little ovens though are fantastic. I don't want to get you wrong. These make really nice pizza. I mean, considering they make really good pizza. So here we are. We're done basically.
That was way less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Too.
So now when I pull this pizza out, I like to put it on a little rack and just let it set up for a minute or two. And what I do is I take a little bit of paper towel, if it's got grease on it, and I just absorb some of that, okay? And I chuck that away. So, that's our finished pizza, and I can tell this crust is, I can just feel it. If we cut into this crust, I could feel that this is going to be delicious. This is really nice. This is the no-knead dough. This other one's going to make very nice pizza as well. This no knead, fantastic. So they cooked really quick. It was probably 3 minutes they did that.
Less than 5, certainly.
Okay, so now we're going to do one of my favorite pizzas.
And I'm going to stand here and film this and not eat any of that pizza while I can smell it.
We're going to do one of my favorite pizzas. Now you could, if you really wanted, you could throw it. If you really wanted.
Do it at the roof.
You could do it. I mean, you could throw it. But I just like to stretch it out here.
The throwing is more dramatic. It's more showmanship than...
Exactly. And see, I can see right now with this pizza, I got a little bit of a thin spot, so I'm going to be careful. You probably can't see it from that side, but it's right towards the bottom. I've got a little bit of a thin spot there. And I want to be just a little bit ginger with this, okay? So, I'm going to clean my oven real quick here. And... put a little bit more wood in it because we don't want to let it.
So the ashes just kind of stay at the back in that little trap. You don't get...
Yeah, this is, and you can, the other thing that's nice about this oven is you can cook other things in it. You can cook meat in it. I've always wanted to cook bread in the big oven. It would be perfect in that oven, but, you know, I've never gotten to it. We've just had...
Dessert? Brownies?
You could probably do a lot of different things. Now, if there was a Guinness Book of World Record for this pizza, I know that I've eaten more of this particular eggplant pizza than anybody on the planet. It's a pizza that when I had my pizza place in Santa Rosa, California, this was a pizza I had on the menu, and we used to call it the St. Helena after a little town in the Napa Valley. And still one of my favorite pizzas to this day. It's simple pizza. It's very simple, but I really love it. It's and all it is pesto, and it's got eggplant. And I take the eggplant and I fan it out in a star pattern, and then it gets pine nuts. But the pine nuts don't get we don't put the pine nuts on until
very thin eggplant. It looks like.
Very thin. I cut this on the slicer. Good to do them on a mandolin. You can cut them by hand. You just have to be as precise as you can because the thinner the better on these because they're going to cook so fast. So super. I love this star pattern. We're going to put pine nuts on there, but we're going to wait till we turn it because otherwise they can burn. And then after this one, I'm going to cook one more pizza for you that we used to call the Gilroy, and it was a I'll tell you a little story about that. But the story about this one, I have little stories with the pizzas. I'll never forget this. This was back in 1972 or 1992, excuse me, and I bought this little storefront, and we just did takeout and delivery. And my thing was, I just wanted to do a takeout and delivery place, but I wanted to put different kind of pizzas, and so we did really unusual pizzas. I had a pizza that had, I think I was one of the first persons to ever use cilantro pesto, or I had never seen cilantro pesto before I did it in 1992. We had a great pizza that had cilantro pesto on it, and anyway, I had this menu of pizzas posted in the window, and I'm in there slaving away, painting walls, trying to get the place ready, and really didn't know what I was doing. I was totally out on a limb, and this couple came. I had the door open, and I was painting, and this couple came up and looked at the menu in the window, and this woman looked at her husband and said, "Eggplant pizza?" She goes, "I give this place a month," and they walked off. So, of course, I'm like, oh boy, what am I doing here? Maybe I picked the wrong spot to do this. But I'm happy to say that we kept it going for 5 years. I sold it, and the place, at least as of 3 years ago when I checked it, was still there.
Was the eggplant pizza a popular one?
It's funny, when 4 years ago when I went by there, the menu was almost identical to when I sold it. So anyway, so we're going to put this one in. I love the flavors of this. By the way, pairing wine with these pizzas, again, rosé is a great wine to pair. Tomato sauce, I wouldn't pair Pinot Noir with any tomato sauce pizza. I just don't think it works. I think they clash. One of the pizzas we do that I love Pinot Noir with is we put a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of feta cheese. We put some wild mushrooms, and then a little bit of mozzarella, and then when the pizza comes out, we drizzle a little bit of truffle oil on it, and that's like one of my favorite pizzas to pair with Pinot Noir. Another fun pizza to do with Pinot Noir is if you have anything. We do some pizza sometimes where we'll use a little bit of, we'll take a little bit of duck, some type of duck breast, and we'll pair with the pizza, and we'll maybe make a little bit of. I use a little bit of more of a Oriental and spice base with a little bit of hoisin and stuff in it, hoisin sauce, and that is really a nice pairing with Pinot Noir. So you just have to. Pinot Noir can be overwhelmed, but tomato sauce not so much with Pinot Noir. Okay, so
I personally love pizza with Pinot Noir, but you're the pizza man, Steve.
Well, I just don't like tomato sauce with it. I like pizza with Pinot Noir. I just don't like tomato sauce. So we're going to let that one go. And while we're doing that, I'm going to start on another one here. And this time, I'm going to make you, which was one of the classic pizzas. When I had my pizza place, this was the pizza we sold best. And it's funny, I haven't seen it quite done like this in many places since. And sometimes when I go to a place, if I really like it, I want to call them over and say, hey, I've got the perfect pizza for you. You'll be selling a ton of it. And I never quite have the gumption to do it, but because they look at you like, oh, what are you going to tell me? What do you know about pizza? But this is a really slick one. It's basically a roasted garlic and sun-dried tomato pizza, and I really love it.
So when you opened up your place, did the eggplant pizza require convincing? You say, hey, try it, you'll like it? Or
you know what?
Was that limited to one person?
It just kind of took off, and we did really, it wasn't our best-selling pizza, but we did really well with it. So no complaints. Now, if you're going to have like 30 people over, you're not going to be able to use one of these ovens because, I mean, you could, but it'd be hard to do that many pizzas. But if you're having 10, 15 people over, this oven is fantastic. Like I say, it's really thin. I have another very cool oven here that a friend gave me, who is, I have a friend of mine, one of my best friends ever. He's fantastic, not only a fantastic pizza maker, but just a fantastic cook. He's the most food-driven person I've ever met in my life, and he's taught me more about cooking than anybody, really. put pine nuts on when I spun it, but I forgot, so I'm just going to put them on now. And like I say, this is just one of my favorite little pizzas. I just love this pizza. It's simple, but it's fantastic. And you know, you can always put a little, sometimes I'll put a little, like if you have some really good salt, like if you're into salt and have different kinds of salt, I'll sprinkle a little salt on it at the end. Oh, it's beautiful. Okay.
Somebody said the wind was bothering the speaker, so I moved over into the shaded area a little bit here. Hopefully that'll help you guys a little bit on the sound.
Yeah, this is outdoors, so it's, sorry, it's
They're getting a beautiful vineyard view now, though. You see our lovely garden out here.
yeah, it's a very typical Oregon May day with the it didn't rain all day until we started this, and then it started to rain a little bit. But okay, so I flatten this out again, and we're just going to stretch it out. And you can always stretch it right towards the edges. You know, that's really where you want to stretch it. You don't want to stretch it towards the. You can just kind of put your knuckles and just kind of stretch it right towards the edges there. It's very elastic. This high gluten dough is very elastic. You can do this with dough that or flour that you buy in the store. Yeah, you can do it with just basically, flour. Bread flour probably has a little higher gluten that you see in any supermarket. But I would encourage you, if you really get into pizzas, to get the 00 flour. That's kind of the classic Neapolitan pizza flour, and it does work really well. Okay. This one I'm stretching out a little bit bigger just to show you how pliable this dough can be. And on this one, I love this pizza. It's a really versatile pizza. So this one I'm just gonna put a little bit of olive oil down there. You can brush it on. You can do it however you want. A little bit of olive oil down there. I'm going to put some mozzarella cheese on there. And if you wanted to use, when I had my place, we actually blended. We would, buy these big blocks of cheese and grate them ourselves in our big Hobart. But we would do a blend of mozzarella Asiago and provolone, which is a really nice blend. So that's a good blend to use. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some sun-dried tomatoes on here. Now, if you're using sun-dried tomatoes that are dry, I encourage you to hydrate them first. Put them in hot water for 15 minutes, and then I would put them on when you spin the pizza. Otherwise they're going to burn. They're just going to burn to charcoal. These particular ones I have, these are some tomatoes that were they were put in olive oil. And so they're really a lot more moist than I can get on. I can get away with putting them on the pizza now. So I'm going to use some of the sun-dried tomatoes here. And the great thing about this pizza is you could put sausage on it now, which I like to do with this pizza. You could put meat. You could put more, sopressata on there. You could do anything you want. Now I'm going to use some feta cheese on there. Okay. I'm going to use some feta cheese, and then I'm going to put some roasted garlic. Really simple pizza, but it's just got a great blend of flavors to it. And then we're going to put when we spin it, we're going to put some pine nuts on there.
And you don't really add any additional, you're not adding garlic to this stuff, you're adding red peppers, you're just keeping...
It's the roasted garlic. And these aren't red peppers, they're tomatoes.
But you're not adding a bunch of spices and stuff, too.
You're
just using ingredients.
Really simple here. So really simple pizza, but it makes for... This was my best-selling pizza. People did figure it out. It was really interesting. People figured it out. They add sausage to this all the time, and it was just a great-selling pizza. I actually had, with this pizza, it's kind of interesting. I actually had, when you're slaving away, you're working away, and you think, oh gosh, usually you get a phone call and somebody says, can I speak to the manager? You're always worried it's a complaint. And one night I got a phone call and somebody said, can I speak to the manager? And I got on and I'm like waiting for the complaint. And they said, we just got a Gilroy pizza from you. And I said, yeah. And they said, I just want you to hear something. And all of a sudden I heard these people clapping in the background. I really made my whole month. It was just kind of fantastic. I felt like we were on the right track and doing something right. So anyway, really great little pizza. I use this for appetizer pizza sometimes, or like I say, it's very versatile. You can add meat to it. If you pull the pizza out of the oven and you've got a bunch of bubbles, you can always just take your little pizza cutter and pop them. And we're going to put a few pine nuts on this.
When you turn it. Trying to get out of the wind here. It's really gusting up through the open space. People are calling dibs on the pizzas, Steve.
Yeah, these will be good little pizzas. See, the only negative part about this oven is you have to really pay attention. You can't spin it too soon because you may go under. If it doesn't set up, you can't spin it. It's got to be set up, but then you're always in danger. You might get a little bit. Ooh, started on fire. You might get a little bit of burnt crust towards the back. That's fine. But I like to steer away from that if possible. But it's really hard to do with this because the back's so hot, the front's not as hot. So that's called the Gilroy, and again, one of my favorite pizzas. And you guys, I'm telling you, this is really easy to make pizzas at home. You don't need this oven. You can use a standard kitchen oven. You don't need to just get a pizza stone. They sell them everywhere now. You have to have that. You can do them in a barbecue, or you can really go fancy and get a big wood-burning oven. A lot of people sell these ovens that they import from Italy, and you can put it in the backyard and have a lot of fun with it. But the dough, people are always like, dough. Don't use any of these recipes that have honey and oil in them and anything. Dough is really simple. It's just flour, yeast, water, and salt. It's very simple. You can play with sourdough, which is really fun. You can play with adding some rye flour in this. You can do a lot of different things with pizza, and it's really not that complicated. So I hope you guys got something out of it. We'll post this video on our YouTube channel, so you can refer to it when you go to make pizza. We'll also post, when we post that, we'll post links to the Oni recipe and the James Leahy no knead pizza dough recipe, which is very good. I use that. We use that here tonight. We use it all the time. So until next time, next week, I think we're doing,
Pinot around the world, I think.
Pinot, yeah, I think we're comparing Russian River, Burgundy, and Oregon Pinot. We're going to do a virtual tasting, and then the one after that, we have 2011 Pinots. I hope you guys are all safe and happy. I hope your state's going to safely open up if it hasn't already in the near future. We were really happy to have people up here again today, and we hope to see you all out here at some point in the future. Take care. Be safe, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching.